Crowds lined the street and packed the Sheridan College Arena Friday to bid farewell to a fallen police officer. Nearly two-thirds of the prized Wyoming range mule deer herd perished in last year's brutal winter. And why is Triceratops Wyoming's state dinosaur? We'll take a look at these stories and more today from Wyoming's largest news organization. I'm Wendy Corr for Cowboy State Daily. Nearly 2,000 people packed into the Sheridan College Arena Friday to honor the life of Police Sergeant Nevada Krincke, who was killed in the line of duty February 13th. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland said there were numerous touching moments shared at the funeral for the young soldier and law enforcement officer who was remembered as a protector, father, and hero.
They played a final call. So a very somber sounding dispatcher called repeatedly for Krincke to answer a call to service, and silence intervened. And then the dispatcher said, "Sergeant Nevada Krincke, 1042, we have the watch from here." And 1042 is, of course, code for end of duty.
Krincke was the first Wyoming law enforcement agent to die by homicide in the line of duty since 1997 and the first line of duty death in the history of the Sheridan Police Department. Law enforcement officers from all corners of the state and from surrounding states attended the memorial. The full scope of the terrible toll that the winter of 22-23 took on the prized Wyoming range mule deer herd has finally been revealed, as a new report indicates that nearly two-thirds of the herd perished. Outdoors reporter Mark Hines says the herd's numbers plummeted from an estimated 30,000 animals in February 2023 to roughly 11,000 last month.
You know, we're talking about like the LaBarge, Big Piney, up through Pinedale, that area, the Wyoming mountain range. They didn't really know the full extent of the damage until, they counted them last year, and then they counted them again, wrapped it up right at the end of last month.
Habitat loss, hard winters, and other setbacks have caused the Wyoming range herd to ebb and flow over the years, but the precipitous drop-off over the last year is unprecedented in records going back to 1990. A bill that would allow a one-time 25% cut of property taxes for homes worth $3 million or less in Wyoming advanced Friday. Senate File 54 is one of the most far-reaching property tax relief bills still alive in the 2024 legislative session, according to Cowboy State Daily's Leo Wolfson.
Basically, on all homes valued $3 million or less would receive a 25% cut to their property taxes. So still a pretty big deal. Not as big as Representative Steve Harshman's bill that would have cut all property taxes while increasing the sales tax, but still probably the next best thing as far as drastic measures go.
The bill would only go into effect for this current tax year and would only apply to residential structures. I'll be back with more news right after this.
Do you know it's illegal to dig or excavate without knowing what's below? This is Jan Warren, Executive Director for One Call of Wyoming. We will be hosting workshops around the state to educate homeowners, realtors, landscapers, underground facility owners, and excavators on the state law, industry best practices when it comes to planting a tree, building a fence, or any other excavation project you have planned. Join us for a free breakfast, get your questions answered, and learn how One Call of Wyoming is here to help. Go to onecallofwyoming.com and register today.
Wild horse advocates are again seething at the Bureau of Land Management over a famous member of the McCullough Peaks herd. This time the anger is over a 6-month-old filly named Thora, which was recently trapped and removed in the BLM's ongoing efforts to thin the herd. Cowboy State Daily's Mark Hines reports that the young horse has quite a following on social media.
She's another one of these Wyoming animals that's gotten really famous just through the social media traffic. Thora is one of the horses they pulled out of the McCullough Peaks, and wild horse advocates are upset because they've started trapping and removing some young horses, some that they say that aren't even really old enough to wean from their mothers yet.
The BLM is trying to trim the herd down from about 180 horses to what the agency says is a more manageable number of about 140. And in a world dominated by Tyrannosaurus rex, Triceratops might seem like a lackluster choice to be Wyoming's official state dinosaur. But folks who know a thing or two about Wyoming dinosaurs say it's one of the best choices because they can be found everywhere across the state, according to Cowboy State Daily's Andrew Rossi.
They're one of the most numerous dinosaurs at the end of the reign of dinosaurs 66 million years ago. And now if you go out to places like Lusk or Newcastle, someone with a trained eye can go up at a high elevation and point out everywhere where there's a Triceratops. They litter the ground. A lot of times they're ignored to pursue more interesting things. But you could make the case that at one point, and maybe still now, there are more Triceratops in Wyoming than there are cattle.
The very first dinosaur fossil ever unearthed in Wyoming was a Triceratops discovered in 1872 in Sweetwater County. And that's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting the subscribe button on CowboyStateDaily.com. I'm Wendy Corr for Cowboy State Daily.